Hi, everybody. Thanks for attending today's webinar, How Grocers Deliver on Experience by Improving Supply Chain Performance, brought to you by Traverse Systems. And as we're going to start with you, as a former practitioner turned academic and consultant, what are you seeing in the grocery space today?
Oh, thanks. That's a really good question. When I'm looking at the grocery industry, I like to look at it from three perspectives: from the retail perspective in the environment, from the consumer, as well as technology. So there's a lot going on. The pandemic has forever changed all three of these. So when you're looking at retail right now, many grocery retailers had to quickly embrace and ramp up for the e-commerce world. So it's a combination of bricks and clicks. What that did was that resulted in an extremely complex supply chain. How do you manage inventory across all platforms? And how do you create a consistent experience for the customer? So one of the challenges, in retail, that you've got a traditional bricks and mortar store now has to go on e-commerce, now has to manage the supply chain from multiple perspectives, and at the same time dealing with increased costs, labor shortages, and everything else. Focus on the consumer. And I think that's a good thing to do. But understanding consumers today and shoppers is very different. You can't lump consumers together into one group. We live in a digital world. And what that means now is that consumers value more than anything else their time, and digital technologies is enabling consumers to shop when they want, how they want, and they want a consistent path to purchase. And out of stocks is an absolutely critical thing to focus on. In a recent trip to Costco, it was a millennial, could not find what they were looking for, demanded to speak to the manager, pulled out their smartphone, which I think is now the weapon of choice, and said to the manager, I can't find this that's on sale. And I just want you to work with me here because I'm 35 years old. I'm probably going to live till 85. I spend $200 a week. I'm never coming back here. So you just lost $1 million, because an out of stock is not a temporary thing. I'm going to come back. When something is out of stock to a consumer, they feel disrespected. So understanding transparency across the supply chain, understanding in-stock positions, and where your products are in the supply chain has never been more important.
Greg, we want to switch over to you real quick. As you look at the Traverse platform and all of your solutions, how does the solution set over at Traverse map to what leading grocers want today?
We have three products, Jason. To answer your question, we have three products that addresses the grocery challenges. Our first product is the platform. It's our flagship program. It's a vendor performance optimization application, and it aggressively identifies avoidable costs in the supply chain. One of the things that we automatically identify and communicate supply chain issues to vendor and supplier partners. And related to that, kind of how the genesis of the platform was, we came out of non-grocery retailers looking to automate the supply chain compliance in the retail industry. We wanted to do three things. We wanted to automate the identification of the supply chain failures where we could. Again, program a machine to do what a machine could do well, free up humans to do what they do well. We wanted to automate the calculation of the penalties, and we wanted to automate the communication of the events. If we do not share with the supplier how they're failing, there is no way that the supplier is going to know that they failed or even improve that supply chain. Our second product is Vision. It is an API supply chain visibility, an API first supply chain visibility solution. It really helps the casual user understand what's happening on that inbound supply chain. When I talk about a casual user, I talk about relieving stress from the merchants or the buyers or the category managers worrying about a purchase order that didn't get picked up and having to email or call around. It was built to give casual users answers to those questions at the end of their fingertips rather than having to use a phone or a telephone. So if you can imagine, a grocery retailers are very promotional. They care about purchase orders that are either are items on purchase orders or SKUs, individual SKUs that might be promoted. And they might log in every morning, every afternoon, and then at night when they get home before they go to bed, just to see the status of that one item or wherever it exists anywhere in their inbound supply chain. Our third product is called Rivet. It is a business process automation. It's really built with the person based on that whole idea of having a machine to do what machines do well, freeing up people to do what they do well. Its genesis comes from our retail background again. Primarily, if you think about, as an example, the vendor onboarding process and all of the departments that are involved related to that onboarding process. You have the buyer that's negotiating the deal, and the accounts payable groups who have to enter information in related to the new relationship. You have transportation group that has to onboard them from a TMS perspective. You have a vendor compliance group that has to help them understand their responsibilities as they become a shipper for your product. And then you have the legal team that's worried about the certificates of insurance, that's worried about getting information that they need to have them set up as a vendor. And in the retail community, in our experience, had never been done very well at all. And if at all, and it's just a disjointed process. And so we built this application where all of that can be managed still independently within those different departments, but managed as a group, as a whole, so that the same experience happens for every new vendor that gets brought on.
Kip, we're going to move over to you briefly. You know, Inez mentioned the importance of sharing data with partners. If you could elaborate a little bit about how Traverse Systems does it and your approach to it.
Absolutely, Jason. So, you know, Inez talked of that single version of the truth, you know, speaks volumes of being able to communicate both with internal business partners, internal leadership, your outward facing vendor communities. You want that same information being presented to everybody, and you want it to be done timely and communicated effectively. So that's where I think we sit on top of all those disparate systems. You know, Greg kind of mentioned it as well, pulling all those different data elements in, being able to provide kind of that high level picture, as well as the ability to drill down to the different details. So kind of on the screen here is just some of the communication strategies that we have. You know, one is a push mentality where we're sending notifications very timely. You know, a charge could happen, or an identification of an issue that's disrupting the supply chain happens today in somebody's distribution center network. And, you know, overnight, this could be analyzed, compartmentalized, and basically communicated back to that vendor tomorrow. Because the whole goal is to provide evidence, photos, whatever is out there to really drive the point home as to what the problem was. And then even better yet, giving them ample time before the next shipment to fix those issues, to try and remove all those supply chain disruptions. So in addition to collecting all that information and communicating it, the ultimate goal is to collaborate, right? So how do we work together with those internal business partners, outward, you know, vendor communities, and ultimately trying to, you know, improve that supply chain, make that something that isn't a concern, right? Because we just want to have the right product in the right place at the right time to drive sales, you know, and has talked about that in great detail earlier about how important that aspect is. So how do we make sure that we're, you know, providing different avenues to collaborate across all the different entities? We have a lot of folks that are utilizing scorecards, from very simple to the one that you see on the screen here is a little bit more elaborate, where you might provide scores and a letter grade, really looking at trends and how are people behaving over, you know, month over month, but even more so, everybody loves to look at that year over year. You know, am I winning or am I losing? Am I getting better, you know, at providing products to, you know, this particular retailer or grocer?
Richard, on the Traverse side, how can we get in contact with Traverse and maybe see the platform in action?
Contact Traverse Systems, got a couple of different methods to do so. Now, I want to reiterate what I said at the beginning. Our time to value on our solutions, depending on the product, is anywhere from 30 to 90 days. Would love the opportunity to share with you how we do that.